The rain was falling hard. It sounded like rocks hitting the roof of Jake's old truck. The road ahead was dark, winding through the forest like a black snake. His windshield wipers worked fast, but still, it was hard to see. Lightning flashed. Every few seconds, followed by loud cracks of thunder. Jake had been driving trucks for 10 years. Kay had seen storms before. But tonight's storm felt different. The wind was too wild. The sky was too angry. It made his skin feel tight, like something bad was about to happen. His headlights lit up the road ahead. There was no one out here, no other cars, no animals. Just the storm and the sound of trees swaying hard in the wind. Then, suddenly, bang, something slammed into the side of Jake's truck. The whole vehicle shook. He hit the brakes, tires, screeched. The truck slid a little before it stopped. "What the hell was that?" Jake muttered, grabbing his flashlight. He stepped outside. The rain hit his face like needles. He moved around the front of the truck, expecting to see a deer, or maybe a fallen tree branch. But what he saw wasn't anything like that. There, lying in the mud near the road, was a girl. She was not wearing much, just some kind of smooth silver suit that was torn and glowing faintly in a few places. Her skin shimmered, almost like it was made of glass. Her eyes, wide and glowing blue, stared at him with fear. She was young, maybe 20. Maybe not even human. Jake blinked. His mind froze. She tried to speak, but only a soft whisper came out, something like, "Help." Storm, cold. Jake looked around. The thunder roared again. Lightning lit up the sky. He couldn't just leave her here. Without thinking, he picked her up. She was light, too light. Almost like she had no bones. She didn't resist. She simply curled into his chest, shivering violently. "All right, let's get you out of this rain," Jake said quietly. Inside the cabin, Jake's small cabin sat deep in the woods, not far from where the crash happened. He kicked the door open and carried the girl inside. She was soaked, her silver suit dripping on the wooden floor. The power flickered, then went out completely. Darkness wrapped around them. Only Jake's flashlight lit the room. He placed her on the couch and wrapped her in a blanket. She was shaking. Her skin had strange patterns that glowed lightly under the fabric. "Can you speak English?" Jake asked. She didn't answer. Eyes stayed locked on the windows. Every flash of lightning made her flinch, like it was a gunshot. Jake noticed her arms burned in strange spots, almost like the rain had hurt her. "What are you?" he whispered. She looked at him, lips trembling. Not safe. Rain, burning. Jake stepped back. He wasn't sure what this was. Alien, government experiment. Was he in danger? But her face didn't look dangerous. She looked scared, lost, like a child separated from home. Outside, the storm only got louder. The wind howled. Trees cracked. Jake locked the door and pulled the blanket tighter around her. Whatever she was, she needed help. And for tonight, he was all she had. Strange clues. She slept. Jake noticed more strange things. Her wounds were healing fast. Too fast. The glowing in her skin pulsed like a heartbeat. And when she touched his hand in her sleep, his skin tingled like a soft electric. Shock dot. Was she radioactive? Was she even from Earth? Jake stayed awake, flashlight in hand, watching her breathe. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from something deeper, something that told him this night was only the beginning. Jake sat in the corner of the cabin, watching the strange girl sleep on his couch. The storm outside was still going strong. Rain hit the windows like angry fingers. Thunder rumbled across the sky, shaking the wooden walls. He hadn't turned on the heater. The power was gone. Only the fireplace gave. A little warmth now. The girl lay under 3 blankets, still shivering. Her skin glowed softly in the dark. Every few seconds, the color would shift blue, then green, then back to blue. It didn't look like light. It looked like something alive. Jake leaned forward. "Who are you?" he whispered. "What are you doing on Earth?" Suddenly, she moved, her eyes opened wide. She sat up, breathing fast. Her pupils were huge. She looked around, confused and frightened. Jake raised his hands. "It's okay. You're safe here." She flinched at his voice, then looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. "Storm, still here?" She asked in broken English. Jake nodded. "Yeah, it's still bad. You hit my truck. Do you remember?" She looked at him with confusion. Then she closed her eyes and said softly, "I run. I fall. The sky screams." Jake didn't understand much, but he could tell one thing. The storm had truly terrified her. He stood up slowly. "You're not from here, are you?" She stared at him for a long time, then looked away. She hugged the blanket tighter. Jake walked to the kitchen and brought her a cup of warm tea. "Here, drink this. It'll help." She took the cup with both hands, but didn't drink. She smelled it, then gave him a confused look. "What is?" "It's tea. Just drink it." Carefully, she took a sip. Her eyes lit up. "Warm," she whispered. Sweet Jake gave a tired smile. "Yeah, welcome to Earth." Signs of the unnatural as the storm raged on. Jake sat with her in silence. Now and then, he asked her questions. She answered in short, strange sentences. "My name?" "Kala," she said. "Where are you from?" Jake asked. She pointed upward. "Sky, far. Are you human?" She shook her head. "Not same. Not like you." Jake leaned forward. "How did you get here?" Kala looked at the fire. "My sky ship. Break, fall. I run, escape." "Escape from what?" She didn't answer, but Jake could see fear in her eyes. Something or someone had been chasing her. She set down the tea and looked at the wooden floor. "Storm hurts. The sky water burn my skin." Jake frowned. "The rain burns you." Kala nodded slowly. She held up her arms. The wounds were almost gone now, but the skin still looked bruised. "My body, not ready for your world." Jake stood up. He went to the window. The rain had slowed just a little, but the lightning was still strong. He watched the sky and wondered how this night had turned so strange. He was just a truck driver, not a hero, not a soldier. And now there was an alien. Girls sleeping in his cabin. Unspoken truths. Kala slowly stood from the couch. Her legs shook. She walked to the window and looked out. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "They will come." Jake turned. "Who?" Kala didn't answer. She just stared at the sky. Jake felt a chill. He grabbed his flashlight and checked the door lock again. It was still shut tight. Kala turned to him. "You help? You kind? But danger." "Not over." "What kind of danger?" Jake asked. She hesitated, then touched her chest. "I have. Thing? They want." Jake's voice became serious. "What kind of thing?" Kala looked him in the eyes. "A key to power, to freedom, to war." Jake's mouth went dry. "And it's with you." She nodded. Jake rubbed his face with both hands. "Great. Just great." The warning suddenly. The radio on the table dead since the power outage crackled. Jake jumped. Kala stepped back, her eyes wide. The radio spoke one single word in a deep voice. "Return." Then it went silent. Jake stared at the radio, his heart beating faster. Kala whispered, "They found me." Outside, Lightning flashed, and in the distance, above the trees, a red light blinked once, then vanished. The cabin was silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the roof. The fireplace crackled softly, casting shadows across the room. Jake and Calla stared at the old radio on the table. It had gone quiet again, but the voice still echoed in Jake's head. Return. Jake turned toward Calla. Her eyes were locked on the window, wide and unblinking. Her hands trembled again, this time not from the cold. They found me, she whispered. Jake stepped closer. Who are they? What do they want from you? Calla sat down slowly on the floor, pulling her knees to her chest. They are enforcers. They control the stars. No freedom, no voice, only orders. Jake frowned. Military. She nodded slowly. Yes, but not yours, not Earth's. They rule where I come from. Jake crouched in front of her. Why are they chasing you? Calla hesitated. Her voice was low. I ran. I saw what they did. To others. To my people. I couldn't stay. Jake sat back. He didn't understand everything. But one thing was clear. She was on the run. And whoever was after her was dangerous. The small things that mattered later that night. Jake boiled some canned soup on the wood stove. Calla watched him closely, her eyes following every movement. You cook with fire? She asked, curious. Jake chuckled. Yeah, old school. Calla tilted her head. We do not use fire. We have beam heat. He smiled. Well, this old cabin doesn't have much beam tech, but the soup is good. He handed her a bowl. She sniffed it carefully before tasting. Her face lit up with surprise. Hot. It's hot, she said. What is this? Chicken. Noodle soup. She repeated the words slowly. Chicken, noodle soup. Jake laughed. You really are not from around here. Calla smiled for the first time. Just a little. But Jake noticed. They ate together in silence for a while. She was sitting on the couch now, wrapped in a clean blanket. Her breathing had slowed. Her glow had dimmed to a calm, soft blue. Then she looked at Jake and said, Why you help me? Jake was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe because you needed it. Or maybe because if I crashed on your planet, I'd hope someone would do the same. Calla looked down at her soup. Most do not help. Well, Jake said, most aren't me. Pieces of the truth as the night wore on. Calla grew stronger. Her skin was no longer bruised. The glowing spots on her arms were steady. Jake guessed her body healed faster than humans. She touched her chest, just under the collar of her suit, and pulled out a small silver object, no bigger than a coin. It glowed faintly with a strange symbol. Jake leaned in. What is that? Calla held it close. The reason they chase me. Jake raised his eyebrows. That tiny thing. It is a star key, she said. It opens gates, ships, weapons, secrets. Jake exhaled slowly. Sounds like something they really want back. Calla nodded. But if they get it, they control more. Hurt more. I cannot let that happen. He looked her in the eyes. So, what's your plan? Calla said nothing. She had no plan. She was scared, alone, and hiding on a planet that burned her skin. Jake stood and walked to the window. The rain was easing now. The red blinking light in the forest had not returned, but the air still felt tense. He turned to her. You're not going to survive out there alone. Not on Earth, and not with those things chasing you. Calla looked at him quietly. You help. Again, Jake gave a slow nod. Yeah, I guess I do. Bond in silence, the storm finally passed around 4 a.m. The forest was quiet again. Only dripping leaves and soft wind now. Jake gave Calla one of his old flannel shirts. It was too big on her, but she liked how soft it felt. She stood near the fireplace, staring into the flames. "You trust me?" Jake asked. Kala turned and gave him a small nod. "You gave warmth, food, safety. I never had all three before." Jake didn't know what to say to that, so they sat in silence again. But the silence wasn't heavy. It felt safe. But safety doesn't last long. Just before dawn, Kala suddenly froze. Her eyes glowed bright white dot. Jake stood up fast. "What is it?" She looked at the window, then whispered, "They are near." And outside the cabin, far in the woods, a light flashed again. But this time it didn't blink. It moved, the early light of dawn painted the sky gray-blue. But Jake's heart was racing with fear. Outside the cabin, the strange red light moved slowly through the woods. It wasn't natural. It hovered, not walking, and it made no sound, no engine, no footsteps. Not even wind. Kala stood perfectly still near the window, her eyes glowing bright. "It is him," she whispered. "The Seeker." Jake gripped the shotgun he kept behind the door. "Seeker." "What's that?" Kala's voice was low. "A hunter. They send him when they want no mistakes. He never speaks. He only finds." Jake's jaw tightened. "Is he alone?" Okay. She shook her head. "Never. Seeker leads. Drones follow." Jake peeked outside. The woods were thick, but he could see little. Glimmers of moving shapes between the tress metal shapes, floating low to the ground. Small machines. Watching, he stepped back from the window. "Okay, that's a problem." Kala looked at the fire, then at the small silver object she held the star key. "They don't care if I live," she said quietly. "They want the key, that's all." Jake looked at her. "Then we hide it. Or we fight." She raised her head. "You cannot fight him. Not with your weapons." Jake smiled grimly. "Lady, this is Earth. We don't give up that easy." The cabin turns into a trap. Jake moved fast. He had survived storms, wild animals, and backroad crashes. He wasn't going to be outsmarted by a floating red light. He handed Kala a heavy coat. "Put this on. Stay low. We're not running, but we're not sitting ducks either." She obeyed, pulling the coat over her suit. Her glow dimmed, almost hidden beneath the fabric. Jake opened a wooden chest near the door. Inside were tools, rope, and small explosives leftovers from his mining job years ago. He handed Kala a flashlight and a pocket knife. "You know how to use this?" She opened the knife and nodded. "It's sharp." "Good enough," Jake muttered. He poured oil near the back door. "If they try to come through here, we light this up." "Fire?" she asked, confused. He grinned. "Yeah. Very Earth-style trap." Kala stood behind him, watching everything he did. She looked scared, but not helpless. Jake could see something changing in her. The Seeker arrives an hour past. The light outside grew brighter. Then a sound, a strange hum, low and deep, filled the air. The windows began to shake. Jake aimed his shotgun at the front door. Kali whispered, "He is close. He feels the key." A moment later, the door rattled. But it didn't open. Instead, the sound moved to the roof. Jake pointed upward. "He's above us." Suddenly, a glowing metal shape dropped from the ceiling straight through the roof. It landed in the center of the room, standing tall and still. The Seeker, it looked humanoid, tall, thin, wrapped in armor that shifted colors like oil on water. Its face was hidden behind a smooth mask with no eyes, just a single red line across. The front it didn't speak, it didn't move, it just scanned the room. Its red line slowly turning toward Kala. Jake didn't wait. Boom. He fired the shotgun straight at it. The shell hit, but the Seeker barely flinched. The armor sparked, but it didn't go down. Jake reloaded fast. Kala screamed, "Run!" He's locked on me. She threw the silver star key toward the corner of the room. The seeker's head snapped toward it. Jake grabbed Kala's hand. Go. They ran toward the back door. Fire and shadows. As they reached the rear exit, Jake lit the oil trail with a match. Whoosh! Flames roared to life, blocking the path behind them. The seeker stopped, scanning the fire. Kala and Jake burst out into the woods. Trees were wet from the earlier storm. The ground was slippery, but they kept moving. Behind them, drones followed. Small, fast, floating machines zipped between trees. Scanning with blue lights, Kala raised her hands and released a pulse of light from her palms. Zap! One drone exploded in mid-air. Jake turned to her. You could do that this whole time. Kala shook her head. Only now, I remember. Another drone came. Jake grabbed a heavy branch and swung hard, knocking it out of the sky. For a few seconds, they were safe. But then another sound, louder, deeper. The seeker had come through the fire. Unburned, untouched, no. More running, they reached a rocky hill. There was nowhere else to go. Kala turned to Jake. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with something new: determination. I cannot run anymore. Jake nodded. Then we stand here. Kala stepped forward and raised both hands. The star key in her chest glowed through her shirt. Energy flowed through her arms. The seeker stopped, watching. Then Kala shouted in a voice filled with power, "You will not take me again." A beam of light exploded from her hands, hitting the seeker directly in the chest. The ground shook, the sky flashed. Jake shielded his eyes. When the light faded, the seeker was gone. Jake turned to Kala. She was breathing hard, glowing brighter than ever. You okay? He asked. Kala smiled for the second time. I remember now, she said. I was not only running, I was fighting. The blast from Kala's energy wave had left a large black mark on the forest floor. Smoke rose where the seeker had stood. Jake looked around, trying to breathe. His heart was still racing. He had never seen anything like that before. Not in movies, not in war, not even in dreams. You destroyed it. He asked. Kala lowered her hands slowly. No. Stunned. It will return. Jake's relief vanished. You mean he's not dead? Kala shook her head. They don't die so easily. Suddenly, a strange sound came from above. WHUMM ... hum. Hum. A ship. Low, large. It passed over the trees, casting a shadow that stretched across the forest. Jake looked up, jaw tight. Nice. Is that them? Kala's eyes narrowed. That's not a hunter ship. That's a speaker ship. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means they want to talk before they kill us. The voice from the sky, the ship hovered above, then slowly came down just beyond the trees. Silently, legs extending like claws. Jake and Kala stepped back. A door opened on the side, but no soldiers came out. Instead, a blue light shot toward the ground and formed a shape of projection. Tall, elegant, not fully solid. It flickered as it moved forward. It was a woman or something shaped like one. Long limbs, smooth, metallic skin. A thin crown on her head. Kala stiffened. High speaker, Varys. Jake whispered. Friend of yours? Kala shook her head. She controls the enforcers. She's not here to listen. She's here to claim. The holographic figure spoke. Its voice was cold and smooth. Subject, Colonnane. You have disobeyed. You have fled. Return the artifact. You may live. Jake stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. The speaker turned her head. You are human. Primitive. Unregistered. Do not interfere. Jake raised his shotgun. Interfering is what we do best. The speaker's eyes glowed. That weapon will not help you. Kala stepped forward, her voice strong. I won't return. Key is not yours. I carry it to protect others. Not for power, not for war. The speaker's smile was sharp. Your heart is soft. That makes you weak. Jake muttered, funny. Her softness just knocked your killer drone into next week. The speaker's image flickered. You were warned. She said coldly. Then the hologram vanished. Preparing for a fight, Kala looked up. They won't talk. Again. Jake nodded. Then we better be ready. They returned to the cabin, now half destroyed. Jake grabbed what tools and supplies were left: duct tape, sharp knives, flare guns. Kala bent down and touched the dirt. Closing her eyes, she seemed to draw strength from the planet itself. I remember now, she said. My father was one of the free ones. He gave me the key to hide it from the enforcers. I was meant to find someone strong to help. Jake raised an eyebrow. And you ran into my truck by accident? Kala smiled faintly. Maybe, or maybe the universe sent me. Jake chuckled. The universe could have sent someone with fewer enemies. The final warning that night, as darkness returned, the forest lit up once more. From the ship came new machines. Enforcer drones bigger than before. With armor and weapons that glowed red. Jake and Kala stood side by side on the hill behind the cabin. Jake held his shotgun. Kala held the star key. You could still leave, Jake said. I wouldn't blame you. Kala shook her head. You helped me, gave me shelter, food, warmth. No one ever gave me those things. She placed a hand on his chest. I will not. Run again. The drones moved in slowly. Their lights scanned the trees. A voice called out from the ship, robotic and clear. Final offer, return the key or be erased. Jake smirked. I vote erased. What about you? Kala smiled. Agreed. The battle begins. Jake fired the first shot. It hit one drone, blasting it into sparks. Kala followed, raising her hand and sending a bolt of blue light into the sky. It struck two more drones mid-air. The rest of the machines responded with red beams. Trees exploded. Ground shook. Jake rolled behind a rock, breathing hard. This is worse than any storm I've seen. Kala stood in the open, glowing like a star, deflecting beam after beam with a shimmering energy field around her. Jake shouted, How long can you hold that? Kala shouted back, Long enough, if you keep shooting. Jake kept firing, reloading. Fast, he aimed for weak spots. More drones fell, but still, they came. Then, suddenly, the ground shook again. The seeker burnt, cracked, but alive walked out of the shadows. Its mask was broken now. One red eye blinked. It was angry. Kala stepped forward. I beat you once, I'll do it again. The seeker raised its arm. A huge beam powered up. Kala didn't flinch. She ran toward it. The forest trembled with the power of the battle. Jake's heart pounded like thunder in his chest as he ducked behind a fallen tree. The drones swarmed like angry hornets, their red eyes glowing with deadly focus. But his eyes were on Kala. She stood in the middle of the clearing, glowing with light that was almost too bright to look at. Her hands crackled with energy as she faced the seeker. The huge beam of destructive light shot toward her, but she did not run. Instead, Kala raised her hands and opened her palms wide. A shimmering shield appeared, bright as the sun. The beam hit the shield and shattered into sparks. Jake's breath caught in his throat. She was holding off the impossible, the battle. Jake knew he couldn't just watch. He grabbed a large branch, sharpened it with his pocket knife, and charged at the nearest drone. He swung the branch hard, smashed the drone's metal shell, and sent it crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. More drones turned toward him, firing red beams. Jake dodged, rolled, and fired his shotgun. Boom. Boom. 2 drones exploded in bright flashes. He looked back at Kala. She was still fighting the Seeker. Her energy shield flickered under the heavy beam. But she did not weaken. With a loud cry, Kala pushed forward. A wave of blue light burst from her hands, striking the Seeker's chest. The Seeker staggered, but did not fall. It raised its broken arm and fired a concentrated blast. The close Jake saw the blast racing toward Kala without thinking. He jumped in front of her. The energy hit his arm, burning through his jacket and leaving a painful sting. He gritted his teeth, but stayed standing. Kala's shield flared stronger, wrapping around Jake like a glowing armor. "We fight together," she said, voice steady. Jake nodded, ignoring the burning pain. Together. They were stronger. Remembering power, Kala's eyes glowed brighter as she focused. Suddenly, memories flooded her mind. She remembered the power of her people, the ones who once ruled stars and fought wars that changed galaxies. She remembered her father's lessons. Her hands crackled with renewed energy. She raised her arms high. A storm of light and power erupted from her. The Seeker screamed. A mechanical noise mixed with something almost human. The drones faltered. Jake fired again and again. Victory is near. With a final roar, Kala unleashed a massive wave of blue energy. It swept across the clearing, hitting every drone and the Seeker. Machines exploded. Sparks flew. The Seeker's armor cracked with a last heavy step. The Seeker collapsed. Jake dropped his branch and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Kala stood over the Seeker's broken form. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes shone. "With fierce light, we won," Jake said softly. Kala smiled, a real smile now. For now. A new understanding. Jake looked at Kala with respect. "You're not just an alien on the run," he said. "You're a warrior." Kala nodded. "And you are more than a truck driver." They both laughed quietly. For a moment, the war stopped. The forest was silent. The sun was beginning to rise. But the fight isn't over. Kala looked down at the star key in her hand. "We must leave soon," she said. "More will come." Jake touched her shoulder. "Then we'll be ready." Together, they walked back to the cabin. The morning light was warm, but their battle was far from finished. The morning sun slowly climbed above the trees, filling the cabin with warm, golden light. After the long night of fighting, the air felt still and quiet, almost like the world was holding its breath. Jake sat on the porch, rubbing his sore arms. His shotgun lay nearby, silent now. Kala stood beside him, her skin no longer glowing bright, but soft and calm. They both knew this peace wouldn't last long. Repairing the past inside the cabin, Jake worked on a small, strange device Kala had brought with her, a communicator from her ship. She watched quietly as he carefully fixed the broken wires and buttons. "This will call your people?" Jake asked. Kala shook her head slowly. "No, it will send a message." Jake looked at her, confused. "What message?" She looked out the window at the clear blue sky. "A message to say, I am safe." Jake frowned. "But what about the enforcers? Won't they come back?" Kala smiled faintly. "They will come. But now they know I have allies." She looked at Jake. A new beginning for ours." They talked. Kala learned about Earth's simple pleasures: coffee, laughter, the warmth of sunlight on skin. Jake learned about Kala's world: the battles, the loss, the hope. When the sun was high, Kala made a decision. "I could leave," she said quietly. "Go back to the stars. Fight from far away." Jake shook his head. "You don't have to," she smiled, her eyes shining. "I choose to stay. Jake looked surprised. Here on Earth, yes, your world is harsh. But it is also home now. The promise. They stood outside, looking at the wide blue sky. Kala took Jake's hand. You saved me from the storm, she said softly. Now, I will protect this world and you. Jake squeezed her hand. And I'll protect you. They smiled to strangers from different worlds, now joined by something stronger than fear or war. The future awaits. The star key pulsed gently against Kala's chest, a symbol of power and hope. She looked toward the horizon, where the sun was rising. The enforcers might still come. Danger might return. But for now, there was peace. And a new story was just beginning.